Good afternoon. Great to see all of you, and I know we're starting just a few minutes late, but hopefully come on in and take a seat, and we'll get started. I'm delighted to welcome you to the 31st Morgan Thomas Executive Lecture. This was established in 1982 in honor of former Dean of the College of Business, Dr. Morgan Thomas. Dr. Thomas served as Dean of the College of Business from 1960 to 1982. And the purpose of this event is for business executives to share information about their careers, their professions, their businesses, lessons learned, and so on. Truly, Dean Thomas was a visionary and beloved dean who helped transform the college from a few faculty teaching technical courses to a faculty of almost 100 that educated some of the most outstanding business leaders in our state and beyond. I know that some of you here today knew Dr. Thomas as your professor, as your dean, and although I never knew him, his spirit and standards of excellence inspire me. We are honored to have with us today his son, Dick Thomas. Dick is an MSU alum, past foundation board member, and was a Morgan Thomas executive lecturer himself when he was an executive with U.S. Bank. Today he traveled here from St. Cloud, and I'm very thankful to him for that, especially given the weather. The Thomas family, including sons Dick and Jay, have given and have been long and generous supporters of the College of Business. And just today, as evidence of their continued support, Dick shared with me a commitment by him and his brother Jay to the College of Business facility and our scholarship program. I am grateful beyond words for their family's support and continued connection with the College of Business. Please help me welcome to the stage Dick Thomas. Dick?
Thank you, Brenda. I hope that your energy and enthusiasm that I've witnessed is contagious, because I think it would be a wonderful thing for the faculty and students at Mankato to catch some of that. So, I told Brenda that I was going to use a Morganism, and my dad had a PhD in economics, but he taught business correspondence, business education, and a little economics. But Dad always told me that a good business letter should be like a woman's dress. It should be short enough to be interesting, but long enough to cover the subject. So I'm keeping that in mind with my remarks. Hopefully they're interesting, but they won't be long. My parents moved to Mankato in 1953, and that's when Morgan started teaching at Mankato State Teachers College. He became dean in 1964. He was a division head before that, and then he retired in 1982. So now you have the chronology there. And when he retired, that's when the Morgan I. Thomas lectureship was initiated. Brenda asked me to talk a little bit about what I thought Dad's legacy was, and what he was always very proud of was his connection to the business community, primarily in Mankato, but also in Minneapolis, because he would meet with people in Pillsbury, General Mills, as well as all the major accounting firms, and they were always telling him how they wanted more Mankato State grads because they just loved him. But he was proud of that connection to the community, and he thought that connection was important for the college and especially the School of Business. My dad served on the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce, the United Way. He served on the Mankato City Council for a term. In the early 1970s, the college developed their internship program, which allowed students to have a connection to the business community. And so to reward, the business community recognized the efforts that Dad had in trying to connect to the community. And when he retired, the business community, as well as alums and faculty members, largely funded the endowment for the lectureship. And so that was their way of saying, you know, we believe that connection was appropriate, and he was honored with that at his retirement function. So that is the legacy that I believe my father would most enjoy being carried forward. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. We have just a small gift that we wanted to give you, commemorating all of the support that you've given us. We want to thank you so much. And there's a little something for you and for Jean. So thanks again. Thank you. We got all kinds of mics going on up here, so I'm just trying to make it be that you're not going to have like reverb, you know, and it's going to hurt your ears. So we'll see if we can keep all the mics separate. Well, before we bring Mr. Taylor on stage, I am delighted to have here with us the executive vice presidents of Taylor Corporation. When we started really talking about having this event and really being thankful for the connection that the college has with Taylor Corporation, Deb Taylor, who's a new executive vice president for Taylor Corporation, helped us to really help this event start, but also we have a wonderful relationship that we're enjoying with Taylor on our MBA program. So I want to introduce Executive Vice President Deb Taylor. Deb is in the front here, as well as Executive Vice President Ron Hoffmeyer, Executive Vice President Tommy Miracle. Nice to meet you, Tommy. I hadn't. Executive Vice President Curtis Moore, Glenn Bottomley, who is the Chief Technology Officer, Glenn, Charlie Hipp, who is the Chief Information Officer, Sheila Kramer, who is on her second day as the Vice President of Human Resources, and Tom Johnson as the Chief Financial Officer. So why don't we give them a nice MSU welcome. I am delighted to be able to welcome Glenn and Becky Taylor to the Morgan Thomas Executive Lecture. Becky, thank you so much for being here. Becky Taylor is in the front with us as well today. Give Becky a welcome, MSU welcome. So, Glen Taylor. Glen Taylor is so much. He is the owner and founder, chairman and CEO of Taylor Corporation, whose companies include more than 80 operating divisions in almost 20 states, multiple Canadian provinces, the United Kingdom, Australia, China, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Mexico. While in college at Mankato State University, he worked part-time at Carlson Wedding Services. Eventually, he would purchase the company. He continued his education at the Harvard Graduate School of Business. He was elected to the Minnesota Senate in 1980 and served until 1990. In 1994, he purchased the Minnesota Timberwolves, and in 1999, he added the Minnesota Lynx. Mankato and Minnesota State would be very different communities if it weren't for Mr. Taylor's philanthropic vision and love for providing opportunities to people. He was raised on a farm outside of Comfrey, Minnesota, is married to Becky, and has 5 children. Please join me in welcoming Glen Taylor. Thank you. What chair do you want? Can you sit here? Well, this is a thrill. Thank you for making time to come to campus and to teach us this afternoon. We're delighted that you're here and Becky's here and so many members of your executive team. We have a great number of students in the audience, many of them seniors who will be soon graduating. What do you recall what was most on your mind when you were about to graduate from Minnesota, or Mankato? It was Mankato State University back then, in 1962. Do you remember what was on your mind?
Very easy. Wow. I'm going to make it through, you know. It was a journey, as you indicated, I had to work part-time. Part-time was 40 hours in those days, so people have appreciation what part-time was. I also, because I was married at the time, was in a really big hurry to get through, so I chose to get through in 3 years. So it was, your day was just go, 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 go. So it was mostly like, wow, I'm going to make it through, you know, and just get through. I don't think I had any idea until I graduated that there was another life. It was just so busy. Then all of a sudden I graduated and it was like, gosh, there's some extra time in my week. And so it was an exciting time, but such a busy time.
So you were a math major. What contributed most to you deciding that you would pursue a business career rather than a career in math? And you wanted to be a math teacher.
Yeah, and I thought that I was going to be a math teacher. I did my student teaching at what was the Franklin Junior High in math to the junior high students there. So I mean, even at the beginning of the year, I thought I was going to teach. The only thing that really changed everything is that Mr. Carlson came to me and asked me if I would consider staying and working with him and try to build the company. I had not thought about business. I didn't even think of that so much as business. I just thought it was you want it on? I thought this was practice.
It's right at the top here.
Well, now I got to tell the truth. I thought I was just talking to Brenda here. Okay. So I didn't even think about it as a difference of going into business or that. It was just that Mr. Carlson came to me and said, would I consider staying with him and helping him build the company?
And is that how he put it to you? Will you stay and help me build the company?
Yes.
So he was presenting it to you and very much that you were going to be a leader and you were going to be very involved.
Oh, yes, that was very clear. He and I had a special relationship. I mean, I would say that he did not have a son. He had some daughters. They were still in perhaps elementary or junior high. They're just younger daughters. And I would say that the two of us had kind of built a relationship that was kind of special together. So, I mean, I understood that part. But he wanted to build the business. But he said some things to me that would be very different than you would normally talk about. He says, I have the company here. We need to, build a business. And he says, I don't want to fire people, so that would be your job. He didn't like, he was a, I guess in those days we called it a bookkeeper, but I mean, kind of accounting, but that he had gone to commercial school and he knew accounting. And he didn't like the people problem. So I think when he said build it together, it was more like, I want you to take on certain responsibilities that I don't care to have in business, and I like working with you. That's what's my understanding of what he presented to me.
So you were presented with an opportunity and decided to take it.
Yes, and I went back up here and talked to, as I recall, 3 members of the faculty that I was pretty close to and asked them about this. And I would say, and probably in short, what they said, Glenn, you're going to be a teacher, you got to math, physics, you're always going to be able to teach. A student like yourself, he said, that you'll always be able to get a job. So don't worry about that. If this doesn't work out, you can always do that.
So you always had the teaching to fall back on. Yeah.
And they said that was for sure. I was a good student, so I mean, they said, don't ever worry about that. If you think this is a unique opportunity that's only going to come to you once, you might want to try that, and then you could, as a fallback. That really surprised me, since these were teachers themselves who I was close to and loved their profession, and they knew that I wanted to be a teacher, but yet I think they were looking out for me and saying this might be a unique opportunity that might only come once in a lifetime and maybe you should try it. Surprised me, but I took their advice.
Well, good advice.
Yeah. As it turned out,
Yeah,
yes.
it turned out okay. Yeah. So I have to, my next question, I have to kind of go to one of my favorite authors in business, Peter Drucker. And he wrote the 1954 classic, The Practice of Management. And in it, he said, and so I'm going to quote a bit of what he said here, because this for me was a really powerful statement. It may be argued that every occupation, the doctor, the lawyer, the grocer, requires integrity, but there is a difference. The manager lives with the people he manages. He decides what their work is to be. He directs it. He trains them for it. He praises it, and often he decides their future. The relationship of merchant and customer, professional man and client requires honorable dealings, but being a manager is more like being a parent or a teacher. And in these relationships, honorable dealings are not enough. Personal integrity is of the essence. Can you share with us what it's felt like to have that level of responsibility for thousands of people? I mean, you're a company of about 90 companies, 15,000 employees. And you were talking about being a teacher. Have you felt kind of this intersection between being a teacher and being a manager, and that you have this amazing responsibility?
Yes, it's something that I've read that, but it's something that I have understood since I was very young. And it's kind of a natural thing for me in that leading people, that you can't pretend that you're better or more important or, let's just call it special. That in leading people, you have to build a foundation with them that's so much on trust. And I think a lot of people think that trust means that somehow you're just greater or something like that, and it isn't that at all. People want to have somebody lead them, but they just need to feel confident that that person is being truthful to them and thinking of them and that. So to me, that's fairly simple. It's just that you got to be honest. So if you start out and you do something that's wrong, instead of trying to hide it from your employees and people that you just did something wrong, you tell them, I thought this is what we were going to do. I thought about it, or I saw something, or I studied it. It's wrong. Now we're going to do this. And I just found out that people like that integrity. They see you as a human, and they want you to be human. And therefore, if you omit your mistakes, but you take them on a new course that they believe in, that they're very willing to follow you. So to me, that whole idea has been a fairly simple one. I mean, it's just, I've just never really had any trouble with that. That's my own thing about it. I just think that some people want to lead and they want to think of themselves as that they're special or that God made them better or something like this here. And I've never seen it that way. I just think that people want somebody that are looking out for them, and they got to make sure that that's really, what's inside of you. Mm-hmm. So it's always been an easy concept for me. I'm not saying I always done it right. That's a little different than understanding it, but I think I've always understood it.
Mm-hmm. Has there ever been a time where you've had some real challenges as a leader? Is there anything that comes to mind?
What are you talking about, yesterday or today?
I see some of your executives.
Yeah, that's why I say they're going to keep me pretty truthful here, aren't they?
They're sitting right there.
Yeah, right. No, it's nowadays it's almost challenging every day. We are so big and so complex. There's problems and things every day. There's people, and it's generally people that are the most difficult ones. There's people that maybe are not meeting your expectations. And that happens so many times. Now, is that because you didn't give them the tools that they needed? I mean, is it their fault that you didn't give them the tools? You didn't teach them right, or you didn't support them? Or is it that they're over their head and you've got to make a decision to get them into a different job? Should they not even be with your company? And I'm just saying, when you have as many employees that we have, and with things changing as fast as they are in this economy, those things pop up a lot. So to me, of all your challenges, is the people is the most difficult one, because you want to do the right thing for those people, but it's not always clear what the right thing is. You know, do you give them more time? If you give them more time and they're in a leadership position, you may be holding back another whole group of people who work under them and hurting those people because you've left these people in leadership too long. So I'm just saying, and it's never come to me that that's just right or wrong. It's not the math part. You know, the math part, it was really easy because it's you're right or you're wrong on that. But people, it's never right or wrong. It's someplace in there, and you've got to figure it out. So I would just say that to me is the most difficult. Now, there are other problems and opportunities, like we have so much money to spend. And I have, as these people, and they represent really a lot of other people, they all come with really good ideas. So we have a pot of money. You have way more ideas than you have money. And it is to select which of those ideas that you should be investing your money in. There's nothing wrong with, you know, I don't want to give it to just the one that makes the best presentation, because some of them are gifted in presentation, but you've got to figure out which is the best one to give us the best return. And that's not always clear either, because sometimes you want to invest in things that are going to help you short run, sometimes you got to invest in things that are going to be long run. So, yeah, my life, I don't think, if you talk to Becky, is every day she says, well, how did today go? You know, I give her that smile. You don't want to know. No,
it's sufficiently challenging.
It is. It is. The job is every day. I would just say that there's things like that that we have to do.
But you enjoy it because you came back to it, because you had retired for quite a few years with Taylor Corporation.
I enjoy it. I'd be dishonest with you. The people part is the harder of those two, just because that bothers me a little bit. The business part is not so hard. I just know that we make a very high percent of good decisions. Not perfect, but very high. I like that because it's not my decision. I work with a team of people, and we come up with some really good decisions. I'm really proud to be a part of that team that comes up with that decision.
So you said that the people decisions are the hardest. Does that ever wake you up in the middle of the night?
Oh, well, yeah. I'm saying I don't think it changes. I don't think you can. I think everybody who's ever had the responsibility of considering letting somebody go from a job, that I don't think I would care for a manager if they didn't.
If they didn't care about it. You know, one of the things that I found so interesting in looking at your mission statement is that you've had the same one for such a long time. You know, we exist to create opportunity and security for employees. You feel really deeply. You feel very deeply about people.
Yeah, well, that was kind of easy. I'll tell you the truth. Yeah, because it was 1963. I worked for Mr. Carlson. I can remember that exactly. It's just like if you said you know, some people might say, well, God spoke to you, or something like that. But I'm just saying, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about this, and all of a sudden this thing came in my head, and it says, well, why are you here? What would you do? And I thought, well, what is it that I want? I want an opportunity, and I want some security. If I work for Mr. Carlson hard, I hope that he takes care of me and does the right thing. And it was just like this there. Why wouldn't everybody else that's working here
so that kind of mission statement came from the 1960s?
1963, I can tell you that exactly. In the summer of 1963.
How many companies still have a mission statement, you know, that's that clear for that many years?
But it changed everything for me. So then I said, well, okay, I'm working for Mr. Carlson. We're going to provide opportunity and security for employees. Why? Because that's what I wanted. It was just that simple. If I want it, why wouldn't they want the same thing? You know? Then I'm sitting there working for Mr. Carlson. I'm hiring some college students. I start telling some college students, well, we're going to really do good. And I said, well, how can I provide them opportunity and security? I don't even own the company. I don't know, maybe Mr. Carlson's going to sell it to somebody else. So I'm just saying, all of a sudden, then it occurred to me, like, I have to buy this company. I never even thought of that before. But if it's opportunity and security, I have to buy that. So then I had to start thinking of a plan.
You thought about buying the company in 1963, the year after you graduated from Minnesota
because
State.
I'm just saying that saying the statement, opportunity and security, I could not provide opportunity for my employees or security if I didn't have control of the company. Because Mr. Carlson, that wasn't his mission. That was my mission. And so we had that. And it took me, about 6 years to get the next share of stock, the first share of stock. I mean, it wasn't just that I thought of it. I had to
Did he know that you wanted to buy the company?
He did once I started pestering him. He didn't know it in 63, but I went in there and asked him, Mr. Carlson, I'd like to buy 1 share of the company. He says, I'm not selling you no shares of this company. I'd come back next month. I want that. He says to me, you're really a selfish guy. And I says, why am I selfish? He says, you're just thinking of yourself. You wanted to buy that. Okay, next month I came back and I says, there's 3 of us that want to buy the company. The other 2 don't know it yet. But actually we want to buy 3 shares of your company. He said no.
He said no? He
said no, absolutely, I won't do that. Then he says, you can talk to my lawyer. His lawyer is a very prominent, very good lawyer in this community called Ed McLean. He's a very good lawyer and stuff. He's an older man, and he says to me, just stop pestering Mr. Carlson. I said, I want to buy 3 shares of stock. Finally, they agreed. We'll sell you 3 shares of stock, but don't pester us anymore. So we each bought 1 share of stock. Next month, I came back and says, okay, we want to buy some more stock. So he knew at that time that I wanted to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So
did that change your relationship? No.
No, it got better.
It got better.
Yeah. We fought a lot. But no, I think he really put it as a high value that I cared so much about the company. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, even though what he said was one thing, I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel that he was going to fire me. I didn't feel any of those things. I don't think that he knew exactly how we were going to do that. And then finally, in the late 1960s, we each got up to 13% of the company, Merlin and Jim and I. We each had 13% of the company, or 39%. And he had agreement with me that if he would sell the company, he would offer it to us first. So he knew at that point in time that that's what was going to happen, and he honored it, and that's what did happen.
That's a great story.
But I wanted to share that opportunity and security. So when I say opportunity and security, today we're a very conservative company. We have money in the bank. We can't go to our employees and say that we can provide you opportunity and security if we don't have money in the bank. Mm-hmm. And I kind of laugh about it, and that's because at one time I owned 9 banks. And I said, I don't want the banks running my company, because I was in banking and stuff like this here. They have a different mission than running a company. Mm-hmm. They have to protect their own investors. So I'm very conservative on money. Also, we tell our employees we have to make money, and we talk to them about it. We say we can't provide you opportunity and security unless we're profitable. We're jokesters if we tell you we can lose money and provide you opportunity and security. So we're very open with our employees that we have to make money in order to provide them opportunity and security.
How would you define opportunity?
Opportunity is, as I say it, it is what you want. I'm talking to an employee now. It's what you want for an opportunity. If you're a student working for me, your opportunity is just to get your degree, and then you'll go on with your life. We would just provide you with that opportunity for those 3 years that you were as a student. If you're the second income earner in your family, we may say your opportunity is to work here because you want to get a college education for your kids, or you want to take your kids on a vacation, or you want to provide them some extras. So that may be the opportunity. So some of it's financial we talk about. But a lot
But you really
of
let people define what that
yeah,
means for
but
them.
a lot of it is not that. A lot of it is opportunity is if you're gifted in technology, we want to open the door to expose you to all kinds of technology things that make you feel good about what you're doing. And we want to give you some pride in the results. That's your opportunity. A lot of like these people that are in the front row have basically at one time in their life told me they wanted to be leaders. So their opportunity, there's something inside of them
But you're expecting people to tell you.
yeah, I can't tell them what their opportunity is. They have to tell me what their opportunity is, what they want. Now, just because they want it doesn't mean it's there. I have people say, I want to be a leader, but I don't want to make a decision. I says, it isn't going to work. So opportunity is what the individual wants. And maybe it doesn't have anything to do with our business, but it's the opportunity they want. Now, security has changed a little bit over time, just because of society and stuff like this here. But we used to look at ourselves, almost all of our businesses were in smaller communities, Mankato being the biggest. And in those towns, when you have employees working for you, they don't have a lot of other places to go to work. So when you say security, it sort of means like if you work for us, we go through a tough year, we're going to have enough money in the bank to keep you employed so that you're going to be around and we'll take care of you. As we've gotten into the bigger cities, we have a lot of businesses in Minneapolis. I'm not sure that has the significance because people in the cities can kind of leave you and walk across the street a lot of times and find another security, a nice job. And we understand that's changed a little bit in larger communities.
Can we talk a little bit about how the company has been really transformed from kind of that one company that was kind of focused on printing to now what you have is kind of a definition of the company is that you're a second generation interactive print and marketing solutions provider with a heavy emphasis on technology, and you're Taylor Corporation is a top 10 graphics communication company in North America. How did kind of all that transformation come about? I mean, how did you chart that course and that transformation?
Well, let's go back. Opportunity and security.
Yeah.
That would be the security part. We were wedding invitations. So we were a one product line. It's happened now. What I was afraid of might happen 20 years ago, and that is that the wedding invitation business has changed so much that it's a declining business, or it's so changed. I always thought it could happen, and I knew I didn't have control of that. So it occurred to me that I better get into some other businesses. We went around a little bit. The second one we figured out was was cards, but it was the Christmas card business. Then we got into the business card business, then the business letterheads. Then went on that. So it's mostly about security that we better get ourselves into a lot of other businesses. As we came along, I think a lot of our employees became more sophisticated, understood printing better, and we all of a sudden started moving up into bigger customers. The bigger customers then started sending us the messages of where we needed to go. We weren't, at first I was more picking them. Later on, our customers started picking them in the sense that they came to us and says, here's something that we needed. And that's into the areas that you're talking about. And a lot of them are large customers that you and I would consider very sophisticated, but in parts of their businesses, they are not sophisticated. And it isn't the printing part, but it's a lot of it gathering knowledge and stuff like that. We've learned to be pretty good about writing software programs and doing stuff like that to help larger companies gather information. Now, we want the printing. When we do that, we provide them services, printing being one of the services. So I think it started out by saying that we needed to expand to protect our employees. Then I think as we expanded, the customers sort of took us to where they needed help, and we just sort of followed.
So you'd say a lot of your growth was because you wanted to provide more security?
That's what it's, yes, that's what it started out, that I knew I needed to be in more than one business, just because I've just seen too many businesses, as we all have over time, that some new technology comes along or some new product comes along, and no matter how good you are, you can just get wiped out.
Mm-hmm. You're an entrepreneur, and in some, many would say you're very much a serial entrepreneur. And what I've learned about you, and some of it from your executive team, is that perhaps your greatest entrepreneurial breakthroughs have been in process innovations. You tweak things on the farm that might be called, tinkering, but you oftentimes evaluate processes, you make them better, faster, adding more value for the customer. And I think a lot of times we don't necessarily think of entrepreneurship in that way, but many say that some of our greatest entrepreneurial breakthroughs have really been process. How do you come up with these ideas for process innovation?
But that's, Brenda, that's kind of an evolving thing. It's really changed. When we were smaller, a lot of our operation processes were mechanical or this. And I was brought up in a farm, and we were very poor, so we had to fix things. You didn't have the luxury of going and buying something. You fixed it. You and I have talked about this because of your background. And so that part was really helpful for me when we were a small company. I myself...
Would you go in and tinker with those machines and change them?
Yeah. Some of these guys, I'll just tell you one story. So I built a napkin press.
A napkin press?
A napkin press. And I used the heating coils from a stove, a regular stove, the electric coils. And I used kind of a mercury bulb that was in a TV that had mercury in it, and that was my switch. And I used cords and stuff like this here, and I built this press. And one of our students here at
what year was that when you built that press? Would that have been
late 60s?
Did you have a patent?
No, I'm telling you, these parts were from old sewing machines and this and that. No, there was no patent on that. But Bob just got to tell you this here. So I built this press and I got it all done. And of course, I'm working on it and stuff like this here. And Marv Crouch, who's one of our main guys, he was a student here and he had just graduated from his Minnesota State, and he was working for me, and I finally got this whole thing together, and I had put rubber mats out for him to stand on and stuff like that, and Marv says, "What, we got rubber mats?" I says, "Yeah, well, I'm just thinking of comfort. You can stand at this press." But Marv, before the day was over, he says, "The reason you got rubber mats is when we touch the machine and we're not on there, we get electrocuted." So that's why I didn't have a patent on it.
So they we're not going to let him do that anymore.
Yeah. No, we did it, and thank goodness there were some really good students that came out of here and then took my ideas and modified it and stuff like this here. But my point was back then, yes, we did a lot of things like this here. But as we went along, it isn't so much that I did the things. I recognized they needed to be done. As it in today, as we have some really smart people that do the solutions. So it isn't that like Glen Taylor does it now. Glen Taylor recognizes that we've got to do this better or do it different, but I myself don't have the knowledge or the means to change this technology. So it's in my interest to find people as this evolves who can meet those standards or stay ahead of those standards. So it has changed a lot. I mean, the solution is the same. We have to change it. But who's responsible to get it done has changed over a period of time. And it's different types of people as technology has changed.
So part of your secret is hiring great people.
Well, that's probably and it isn't too much of a secret. I think everybody knows that if God gives you a gift, and I believe God gives you gifts, that one of the gifts that God gave me is the ability to select people relatively fast. I have been so fortunate that most of the people that have been put into leadership positions with me have stayed their whole career. I mean, so you selected them as fairly young people, and they had the gift, and they were able to take that gift through a lifetime and, improve it to do that. So I don't, it isn't like a secret, but I think everybody knows that if Glen Taylor had not had the great fortune of selecting so many wonderful people, that he wouldn't have had the team's success. Mm-hmm. That's why for us to be located in a college town, you come out with young people with their brains are stimulated to do things and stuff like that, but they just need to be guided somehow to use that knowledge in new things. And we've been just very fortunate to tap this university time and time again with people with just really interesting ideas.
We pulled from our database just to see approximately how many MSU alum we have at Taylor Corporation, and from our best estimate, it's about between 450 and 500, which was amazing to think that we've actually had, that we've had that kind of relationship with that many. You've provided that many opportunities to MSU alum over the years.
You can say that, or you can say that I took this resource that you provided and took advantage of it and became very successful.
And we have a couple of MSU alum on your team, so it's a mutual benefit. I think many of us at the university see a responsibility. Part of our responsibility is to really provide opportunity to the students, and so helping make those connections happen with companies is part of our responsibility, and we take that seriously. So it's mutually beneficial.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm going to switch just a little bit here about being a Minnesotan. That's pretty important to you. And even being a Southern Minnesotan is pretty important to you.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of like where we grew up, probably. Mm-hmm. And I never think of it as being Minnesotan. I don't think of it as necessarily being Southern Minnesotan. But it's probably this part of the country. Mm-hmm. It's probably, it's bigger than Minnesota. I mean, when we go to Indiana, where we've had plants, boy, a lot of those people seem to be just exactly the same thing. And you grew up in the Dakotas, and we've employed a lot of young people that have come out of the Dakotas, Iowa, and stuff like that. They seem to me to have the same characteristics. And I think we just understand those people so well, and they have worked into and especially the leadership positions. The integrity, the hard work, acknowledging that they don't have to be perfect, willing to take a risk, hungry to get ahead, So I'm proud of being part of that, but I don't want to ever exclude that it's just Minnesota. Well, I just think I think we're in an area of the country that's different. We have put our factories at different parts of the United States. And I don't want to judge them all, but one of my first, talk about dumb things. So we went out to New Jersey, and we were going to build a facility. So I thought, well, gosh darn, Mankato, we don't have anybody unemployed. So hard to get an employee. I'm going to go to some place where there's a lot of unemployment. So I got a factory, and I started the factory. I sent some Mankato people out there to hire from scratch. Never did any investigation. I think it was 18% unemployment. Boy, this is going to be the neatest place. And the first day they called back, and they said we had 200 applicants. They said only 2 of them could fill out an application blank. And we're in printing. I mean, it was so, it never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that there was a population out there that could not spell or write or do something like that. So, I made a terrible mistake, and I moved, we found another community that was within 10 miles in New Jersey with a great education system. We pulled all of our employees. We had to go 10 miles
Wow.
away and pull them all out of that school system where we had built our factory, or thank goodness that we didn't really build it. I leased a building that I could get out in 2 years. And we didn't, so we moved our factory to where the school district but I just always
So you
assumed
moved the factory closer to the
school district that we were going to, where we were educating people, and they were going to community college, and they were going to college and stuff like this here. I'm just saying stupid in the sense that I just went out there and made an assumption that if anybody, if they were unemployed, that they all would be good workers. And those school districts were not providing an education. They were graduating students who you and I would say didn't know how to write or read.
No, part of that too, as I was talking about you being a Minnesotan, is that you've given so much to Minnesota. CEO and owner of 90 plus companies, plus a majority owner of an MBA and WMBA teams, a Minnesota legislator for 10 plus years. You've been on many boards, including the MSU Foundation Board and the College of Business outstanding alum. You've given so much to Minnesota. I mean, I think that where does that drive, where does that motivation come from to give so much to Minnesota?
Brenda, it's not very complicated. If people read the Bible, they could get a little bit out of there that it's really not mine anyway. So you just, it's something that's been given to you. You have the responsibility of the resource, and then you're to give it back. So that's the oldest, I'm saying. So that message is really old, It's really wonderful. Well, I think so too. That somebody thought of it 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago.
But is that a modern kind of perspective? I mean,
no. I'm just saying for myself. It's not new. So then, to me, you're here. You have the thing. I was given more than abundance than I deserved, than I ever thought I would have, that I would ever think. So what do you do with it? You give it. So now the responsibility is, how do you give it back? That's, I think, is the most difficult.
But being a legislator, I mean, you didn't have to do that. You were working full time. I mean, you had a company. You had other. What was the motivation for wanting to represent this region in that way?
I thought maybe if I was going to do that, I was going to be governor or something. It wasn't just to be the. He says, I talked to Becky, and she says, "No, you really wanted to be king, didn't you?" I said, "Oh, Becky, you don't have to tell everybody that." But, so my ambitions were, politics was. That was an experiment to learn to be better.
It's a long experiment, 10 years.
Yeah. But let me just tell you what I learned from that. Right or wrong, I don't. I'm not. We're talking about stuff that I don't usually talk about. But I learned that I wanted to be a leader in that. But I'm the wrong leader. I would have been the right leader if there would have been a crisis. If there would have been a crisis, I would have been the right leader. If there would have been a crisis, see, I just don't think education is as good as it needs to be. And I don't think we're going to get there until somebody says there's a crisis. And so far, nobody says there's a crisis. There's a problem, and it's not this and that. But I think you almost...
It's a problem, but not a crisis.
Yeah,
Just
right.
haven't gotten to crisis
And I
stage.
think, to me, I can see we just spin our wheels, and we don't do enough. And I can kind of see myself that most people wouldn't want to be the leader if there was a crisis. I would want to be.
Because there would be change.
I know I could make change. And under the present model, when I was in 1980, we did a lot. I helped the university here. I helped some other universities and stuff like that. But not as much as I would have hoped to. And I just didn't see it in the people that they really wanted to make the changes fast enough or good enough that we should have. So to me, it was an experiment. It was a good experiment. I didn't like politics. I'll tell everybody I didn't like politics. I was good at it, but at work I think I'm good at it, but I like it. It's a huge difference.
What didn't you like about politics?
Because you couldn't really achieve the things that you needed to achieve. It was always compromise. I learned to do this very well. You got 60% of what we needed to do. So I got the 60%, but I always looked at the 40%. It was there to be had if people would just work together. But We couldn't give the Democrats the credit. We couldn't give the Republicans the credit. So what do? We let the citizens hang out there because we can't. We don't want to give the other guys the credit, stuff like that. I mean, it just drove me nuts. Tell you the truth.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's really not.
It would drive me more nuts today.
Now. Yeah, it's pretty bad now too.
Yeah.
So I want to leave some time for others to ask questions, but I'm just going to kind of end with this. So it's been about 50 years since you graduated from Mankato State, and many of these students are just about ready to embark on their professional journeys. What advice do you give them?
Well, it's hard to talk to a group because when I talked about opportunities, each of us might have a different opportunity, and I'd like to talk to you as an individual because I would probably direct it towards, and you would say to me, this is what I want. So let me, be kind of broad. First of all, I think where you're going to go into your career, make sure it's something that you like. Life is going to go really fast. And from an old guy, I'm telling you, it's going to go really fast. You're young, it doesn't look that way. So do something that you like. You're going to be way better at it. Don't get stuck into something. I went to school for 4 or 5 years, and this is what I think I wanted to do, but I hate it. Get out of it. If you went to college and you can graduate, you're smart enough to learn another career. I can tell you that. Don't worry about that. If you can do well here, you'll do well in the...
If you're a math major, you can be in business.
Absolutely. If you can... And I have so many students that have come out something different. I said, really what a university does is just teach you how to think and teach you how to relearn. It doesn't really teach you how to do a job. Mm-hmm. So what you're preparing yourself is how to think, how to get information, how to do that. And you're all smart enough to do that. I just personally, I look at the world and say, there's very few jobs that I can't do. Because I've just learned there isn't that many people that are that smart. There are some really smart people. I'm not trying to say I want to be like that. But most jobs you can do. You're smart enough that you could do if you wanted to do it, if you like it. So get into something you like. Now, if you want to say, well, but I want to do really well or something. Let's say it's financially well or it's leadership well. You're going to have to take some risks. It didn't just all fall upon me and then it just ended up I got it. I took some risks. I would say that's the difference. I took some risks. And I took some gambles and money and stuff like this here. They paid off for me. They didn't all, but most of them did. So if you want to get ahead, you're going to take some risks. It's easier to take risks when you're young. As you get older, it gets more difficult. For logical reasons, you may be married, you may have children, you may have other responsibilities. So therefore, it gets a little thing. So if you're going to take some risks, do it while it's easy to take the risks, and it's easier while you're young because you can recoup, get back, get started. And then associate yourself with other people that you really admire and like. Not who are the same as you. Probably you don't want them to be the same as you. I don't see myself, and I take my executive team, I don't see myself in any of these people. I see them all adding to me. They all have some skill set that I don't have. They broaden myself. And I think they see that in me, too. So we share that in common. We each give the other person something. So associate yourself with not people that are just the same as yourself, but to people who can add to it. If you're strong in marketing, you might need a financial person. If you're, vice versa. If you're a technology person, some of your brains are set that way, you might want to be with a people person who understands how to deal with the people problems of the world. So, that's really broad. So you'd
rather go one-on-one?
I need to really, to answer that question, I really need to, I get a lot of opportunity for that. Yeah, I'm just saying that I don't want to say that there is something out there that's just universally going to work for a whole group of people. God made us all so different that I just found out that you got to look at your skill set and then where you're at in life and then use that.
Gotcha. Well, I think it's time for us to take some questions from the audience. And I think we have a couple of students who have some mics and are going to circulate so that you can ask Glen Taylor a question you've always wanted to ask him. So, do we have any questions?
Okay, so I wanted to know, why did you buy the Timberwolves and how much do you do for the Timberwolves?
Well, let's answer the first part, or last part first. Obviously not enough. Well, it's a story, so let me just, a couple things. I never thought of owning the Timberwolves. I never planned on it. I never wanted to. Because I was in politics, Governor Carlson asked me if I would get involved to help keep the team in the state. There was a party that was needed to sell it. There was another party who wanted to purchase it. He said it was a very difficult negotiations. They wasn't getting done. Would I go up there and get involved? I had never met the people who were selling it, nor the person who was buying it, but I spent some time doing that, trying to get them together. While doing that, I learned an awful lot about the Timberwolves. Eventually, that deal never came to pass. They broke apart. I was already home doing my work. And then from that, the present owners at that time called me up after that and said, Glenn, you were up here working, trying to put this deal together. We've been dealing with about 10 different parties. We never had anybody like you that understood how to get the deal done. Would you be interested? It had never occurred to me until he asked me that question, would I be interested? 4 days later, I had a deal to buy the club. So yes, I jumped on it really fast and made it. I didn't know where I was going to get the money. I didn't know what it was going to cost me. I didn't know how to run it or any of those things. But I jumped on the opportunity. So that's what I'm saying. It just was a risk. It was there. And in 4 days, it went from not knowing it to having a deal. So how much am I involved? I'm involved more in the selection of people to run it and doing that and expecting them to do their job. But, we've just had... As I've had really good luck in a lot of things, that particular one lately, we just had the worst of luck as injuries and things like that. So, that's the way life is. I have to deal with it. I have to keep a smiling face, and I got to go up there and work really hard to next year. I am involved in it. The answer is yes, I am involved in it.
Thank you.
We have a question from Twitter. How do you keep with integrating new technology with so many separate subsidiaries?
Oh, that's easy. I hire really smart people, some of which are sitting right here. I don't pretend that. See, that's why I say I think with your people, you can't pretend that you are something that you're not. I can't come into a room and say I understand what you guys are all talking about and what. This, I have to say, all right, we have a problem here, and I ask people, what's your advice on how to do that? What I have found out, though, that even though that people talk about technology and some really interesting things, there's a lot of just old business common sense that helps you to get to the right answer. And those things come to me pretty easy when they sort of explain, how they're going to go about solving this problem. So I don't even, and then they use all these letters and stuff like that. I don't even pretend that I know what they're talking about, and they know that I don't. But that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in for them to explain to me what is the problem and how they're going to solve it and what alternatives do they have. And then I have to And I'm probably betting on the person more than I'm betting on the solution. That I know the person, and I trust that person that they'll carry out their solution, even if I don't fully understand the solution. That's where it is today. I can't keep up with it. I mean, you know, when Grandpa has to have the little kids get his TV on.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. My question is, I aspire to be an entrepreneur like you, and I was wondering if you had any advice for our generation to be successful entrepreneurs.
No, not probably different than what I said before. There are probably more opportunities now than there used to be, just because the world is changing faster. That's the plus. The minus is that you have to move so darn fast in order to grab it, and that just months might go by. Certainly a year, if it goes by, you've missed the opportunity. Where I think in the past, people like me had more time to try to resolve it. I could make a mistake or two and still probably, if it wasn't a big mistake, I could probably still do it. So, boy, I still think you're going to have to take the risks. You're going to have to surround yourself with the right people. But I think you're going to have to move really fast, and I'm not sure I'm the best one on that. We're trying to move really fast in the things that we're doing. If I was critical of our organization because of our size, we probably don't move as fast as I would like, just because of the speed that you need to make decisions. So I have a saying within our company that if you come in and ask me a question, I'll give you an answer in 15 minutes. So that kind of tells you how we think about it, but it still takes too long because the decision needs to go up a lot of steps to get there. I don't know if I did a very good job on that one. Okay.
You're more or less at the pinnacle. Goals for yourself? Do you set goals for yourself?
Yes. You're talking about business? Okay. All right. So I divide them up. I still think you have your personal goals, as like being a father and being a grandfather and doing things like that that are really important to me. I don't think that ever changes. That you have goals, that you want to be a good model, do you want to teach the right things. So I still have all those same goals, to strive every day. I think on business, I still want to be associated with a team that grows, comes up with new ideas and that. I'm just proud of that. I think it's fun to take on some real difficult challenges. And our company's taken on some really big challenges that we absolutely don't know the answer to. But we're working like the dickens to try to figure them out. And I like that. I just think that if you can be a team of to figure out something that other teams have never figured out before, it's just a very motivating thing. And it isn't a thing that's very personal. It's because you're in a group that it's really fun. That really makes it exciting, because it's a shared success. So yeah, I have those.
Hi, Mr. Taylor. What is one of your favorite businesses or industries that you've worked with, and why?
So what's one of my favorite?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't. First of all, it wouldn't be fair, so I won't say that. Well, it's I would never say that one group of employees and this is more favorite than the other. It isn't the way I think. But I think people ask that of you sometime, maybe in a little bit different question. And so it's your first business, because without the success of Carlson Craft, the other ones wouldn't come. So I'm willing to say that I'm really proud of Carlson Craft, because that's the first one I got going, and if that hadn't been so successful, I wouldn't have been in a position to do the other ones. But as far as groups of people to work with, or as far as being successful, I don't have one, but even if I had one, I'll be very truthful with you, I wouldn't say it.
So I had a question. Obviously, you've had to make a lot of ethical decisions getting where you are.
Ethical?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Okay.
Right. What's your decision-making process? Do you have a standard set of questions you have to answer?
Well, see, I'm not sure how kind of answer that, so if I go the wrong way, help me here. So a lot of decision-making for me is I talked about opportunity to security. So I take, what is the upside? What if I'm right? How much room do I have to go up compared to if I make that decision and I'm wrong? And, how much is the downside? So that's really important to me. So let's just say I have a decision that I've got a huge upside. You'd say, well, then why wouldn't you do it? Because if the downside, if I was wrong, would ruin the company, I probably wouldn't do it, because my downside is too big if I'm wrong, and I'm not, no matter what, I can't ever say I'm 100% right. So my decision making is to try to take and look at the problem, and can I minimize the downside? So if I'm wrong, I can kind of control that. But I want a huge upside. Now, I'll take a little upside if there's no downside. But I won't take a little upside if there's an equal downside, because it isn't paid. Now, I don't know if I'm quite answering your question, but that's how I sort of do it in my mind. Now, there's a lot of other things in that. The upside depends on who's making the proposal. Do I have a history with that person? Has that person been pretty much right on? So I'm going to jump to another answer. I just thought of something else, but I think that this is probably really important to the young people. So people ask me, what is the difference between a really great leader and a good leader? You have both, don't you, Glenn? And I said, yep, I've got great leaders and I have good leaders. So what is the difference? Logically, if you're in a class, you might say, well, the great leader probably comes up with the right solutions 90% of the times, and 10% of the times they're wrong. And the good leader comes up with 60% of the times they're right and 40% of they're wrong. But that's not it. I haven't really seen the difference between the great leader and the good leader. They're all like 70% right and 30% wrong. There always seems to be a constant. The great leaders are this and that. So you say, well, what is the difference? The great leader recognizes the 30% quicker than the good leader. So in other words, the great leader, the two that are the 70% that are good, they both carry on with the good. But it's getting the negative. The great leader gets into the program a little ways and sees that they have made a mistake, or they're going the wrong, let's just say they're going the wrong way, quicker. And they cut off the negative at a very little loss. And so therefore they have to be a person that is willing to admit that they made a mistake. They're a risk taker. They stand right up and said, I know, Glenn, I said I wanted $1 million to do that. We've spent $175,000, but I can tell you the $175,000's been a waste almost, but the $1 million would also be a waste, and I'm telling you, let's cut it off. The good leader, or the poor leader, but whatever, they spend the $175,000. They're not so sure that they're doing the right thing, but they don't want to admit it. So they just keep going. They say, well, let's stick a little bit more money and a little bit more time into it. Maybe it'll come out okay. Then nobody will know that I made a wrong decision. That, to me, is the critical thing of all of that. That don't get into that some people are really that much smarter on ideas than the other people. But some people have the ability to say, I just recognize that I made a mistake. And they reserve that resource and they don't waste it. Is that helpful? Okay.
Mr. Taylor, back here. Hi.
Okay.
Regarding success in business, how much of success for a company is based on being intentional, putting together and carrying out a 5 or a 10-year plan, and how much versus success in a business being responsive?
Yeah, those. Thanks. So there's no right answer to that because sometimes it's 100% of one and very little of the other, and sometimes it's 100% of the other and a little bit of that. So you've got to be lucky in both of those things. Now, the difference is, I'm going to get off a little bit here. The difference is when I started the business, maybe I could have a 5-year plan. I can't even have a 5-year plan now. I can tell you, we don't even, somebody comes in to me and they say, Glenn, what's the company going to be like in 3 years? I says, go ask my youngest people. You know, they're going to be a better guesser than I'm going to be in 3 years from now. So the thing, I still think you got to plan. I'm not ever going to say that you shouldn't plan. I think you got to always plan. I'm a mathematician, so I'm going to always tell my people, you better have a plan, and you better lay it out. We always have a budget. We always have that. We do that. So I wouldn't ever go without a plan. But we get off our plan sometimes pretty goddamn fast. I mean, we just had a plan, and it's 3 months later, and the economy's changed, and something has happened, and all of a sudden, that plan that I thought we had is 60% reliable and 40% unreliable. Now, responsive is becoming more and more important. You've got to be responsive to your customers' needs, and your customers' needs are just changing faster and faster, and it's becoming more international. So to me, you got to have them both, but I see the shift from the planning to the responsive is probably what's happening in the world. So it's not a good answer to your thing because I think somebody would have to tell me what thing you were really talking about, and I could tell you, like, give me a 2-month plan because that's all the further we're going to be able to plan this thing, and then let's see what the customers want, and then we'll adjust our plan. We'll respond to what the community is asking for.
So I think we can only take one more question. Two? Okay. I know we have some students who have class at 6, okay. So I just want to kind of watch the time. So maybe 2 quick questions.
On Twitter from the Free Press, they want to know, can you talk about the differences in the CSU from the students from 20 to 30 years ago compared to now?
Ask the question again.
Can you talk about the differences in the MSU students 20 or 30 years ago versus today?
I think that's a hard one. But I would say I think the best students are the same. The best students that came out of here 20, 30 years ago are like the best students here. The best students are still really a valuable part of a company. I think the worst students worst students today probably have a feeling the world owes them something, and I didn't recognize that so much 20 or 30 years ago. So I don't see it in the top. I see the top or the best students are still really good both times. But I think some of the students are coming in and it's like the company or the country owes them something, and I don't understand that very well. And they don't make very good employees for our type of company. But as a whole, students now have access to so much more information, and I think they can be pushed faster into the company than they used to 20 years ago, just because they have access to so much information and this. And so I think they can move faster. So those are just some small things that I kind of see how we work with our students. I mean, just no question I want the best ones anyway.
Good evening, Dean Flannery and Mr. Taylor. My name's Mariah Miles. You touched on you can't plan, but I was wondering, is there any way for Taylor to grow, or do you want to grow in a certain directions? Are there any adjustments you think Taylor Corporation is going to make in the future? Do you see any challenges? So I know you sort of touched on that, and it's hard to plan, but do you see anything you want to grow into, or does your team identify anything?
You sound like a young lady that might have some interest in that.
Yes, by chance.
Okay. Well, first of all, for about opportunity and security, it hasn't changed. We need to grow. Yes, so we need to grow. We believe we are growing. We believe that there's some areas that we think that we can do very well in growing. But as I meet with the employees, we need to every month explore some new areas and see if this might be where we want to go. And we do that by going out and talking to our customers. And so one of the things you can do with your customers, now first of all, you better give that customer really good service. They better admire you. They better think you're really good. But if you do those things, you go to those customers and say, do you have some other services that are not being provided? Or you don't think your vendors are very good? And we want to look at that. I would say 90% of those we don't have a chance to do it because that isn't our business. But every once in a while things pop up that they say that they need a service and they aren't getting furnished very well. We're going to look at that if we see it as a profitable area to get into. We need to get into more areas. More and more of our customers are kind of saying to us, I think I'm correct, I got my salespeople here and I'll get a nod from them, but they're saying to us, we want fewer vendors. We want you to do more for us, and therefore, that's why we were sort of asking that question. We already have them sort of in our hands. They like us, they respect us, they think we're really good. So we're trying to figure out how to expand, not only getting a new customer, but we're probably pretty good at expanding the services that we provide our current customers, broadening those services. So I think I'm answering your questions. Yes, we have to grow. So we're trying to grow by expanding services to our present core of customers. We also realize that we have to get new customers out there. And some of those are the new ones that are the internet companies and stuff like that. We got to figure out what services that they need that we can provide so that we can get into kind of the new technology areas.
Thank you so much. This was a great hour together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I also want to thank all of those who made today happen. We had Elizabeth, thank you so much. All the students, we had a lot of College of Business students helping out today. We tried Twitter for the first time, taking in questions, so thank you for that help. Thank you to Deb and the team for being here. And Becky, if you want to come up here on stage, we have a small gift that we want to give you and Glenn. We wanted to commemorate this snowy day, so we have a gift of, I think, we have MSU matching scarves and hat for both of you. So for this snowy day, we also wanted to give you the poster
very nice.
of the event. So thank you again for both being here with us.
Thank you again.
Thanks for staying. Have a good evening. See ya. Bye-bye.